Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on, y'all? This is another episode of Questlove Supreme. I'm your host, Questlove. We're here with Team Supreme. Laia, hello.
Hi.
How are you this morning?
I am doing amazing because two of my
You're so excited, you literally compressed your microphone. We
Yeah,
didn't
oh
the
I
even
did.
hear you
I
say
loudness.
it.
said I'm sorry. I said I'm so excited because two of my favorite drummers of all time are on the same call and it's really kind of mind blowing. I'm losing my shit. Thank you.
Aw. Unpaid Bill, how are you from your weekend excursion?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm psyched to be here too. I always feel like the episodes where we get like real drummer heavy are always kind of fun to watch you sort of like half sweat, half not sweat. The whole thing is great. There's like
I don't
lots of
sweat.
flowers, lots of emulation, it's awesome because like we deal with like real heavy choppy drummers and then like groove drummers, all kinds of drummers. I'm excited about it. I'm into it.
There you go. All right. Yeah, well, as Bill has already keeps you guys in. We can call today the Give the Drummer Some
Yes.
Mo episode. Our guest today, for 4+ decades, has been blowing our minds with her drumming. Uh, it's only apropos that we say Give the Drummer Some because it's so weird. The title has been such a uh, an important calling card for people of our craft, but I've yet to see anyone actually title their album Give the Drummer Some until now. As I said, 4 legendary decades of drumming, behind some of the greatest uh, acts of our time. So many to mention, of course, like Gary Bartz. I will say that the majority of the earth might know her via her tenure with Lenny Kravitz, but there's so much more, um, in terms of who she's played with, and you know, even though I've known of her legend for the last for all my professional life, um, we've never had a direct conversation, and this is it's time to break
Hey,
that ice.
yes, it
Ladies
is.
and gentlemen, please welcome the Questlove Supreme, the one and only Cindy Blackman Santana. Thank you. What's going on?
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here with you. Yeah, I'm
How,
very excited.
how are you this morning? Where are you located right now? What part of the world are you in?
Doing great, and I'm in Las Vegas right now.
Okay, you're in Vegas. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Ahmir, I just saw her Tony. Is that an amp back there? The Tony Williams player died. Look at that.
yes,
Oh, yes.
I believe that's
Or is
a
that the
poster
album? That's the album.
for an album.
Yeah,
Nice. Okay.
yeah. I got a
So,
few of
do you
my
reside in Vegas
favorites.
right now, or
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
Can you
We
explain? Oh, good. What were you saying?
I was just say we go between Vegas and Kauai.
Okay. Well, explain to me because I I literally like just got off the plane an hour ago from Los Angeles, and that was the first time. Now, even though there was an event happening, of course, this taping's way after, but I was coming back from the Emmys, and I'm seeming to notice that LA is getting rather empty, if you will. Everyone is relocating to Las Vegas. What is it about Vegas that I don't know? Because
Cheap.
or am I only visiting the Times Square of Vegas and not seeing the rest of Vegas? What is it about Vegas that's calling the professional world? Because that's pretty much where everyone's living now.
There's a lot going on in Las Vegas. I mean, it's definitely the Times Square. It's lights and glitz and glamour, but firstly outside of Las Vegas, and we live like 30 minutes from there, from the Strip. It's very peaceful. It's very
Mm,
calm. I think that, a big draw for a lot of people is that it's a hub because you get people coming from all over the world, to come to Las Vegas for, casinos and shows and
right.
whatever. So, there's a big chance to get a lot of exposure globally just by being here, because of the amount of people in traffic and the types of people that you run into. So for business, it's good for that. Um, Also, the cost of living is a lot lower.
Like significant, right?
Yeah, significantly lower. And so, if you want to have like some space and get a building and do something, it's much easier to do it here. So a lot of people are flocking here, and it's pretty amazing because it's. I was thinking, recently, and you akin this to Los Angeles. The traffic is becoming like Los Angeles.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there a concern that Vegas will soon, like the property values will go up? Like, will the gentrification effect hit Vegas? Like, at first it was everyone's little secret, and then everyone's moving there. So, is there a concern that this is no longer like the little secret anymore? Or because even now, I know that there's two major movie companies that are absolutely like uh setting up shop inside of Las Vegas. So for all intents and purposes, I would think that by 2028, Vegas will pretty much just be Hollywood. So is there a concern that that is what it's going to turn to? Thus, people will be like, all right, well, let's go to Arizona now that Vegas has been sort of infiltrated.
Arizona is already a plan B for some people. They call athletes.
Yeah,
They
I was
move.
going to say
Yeah.
like Arizona is the athlete, so probably New Mexico. Well,
New Mexico. That's what I was just about to say, Ahmir. During COVID, a lot of artists moved to New Mexico,
yeah,
right? Am I tripping, Cindy? Did you know about that?
A lot of people are moving to New Mexico, and
Yeah.
things push out. I mean, I saw that happen in New York City because, you had Manhattan, which was the hub, and then, people started pushing out into Williamsburg, into Brooklyn, other parts of Brooklyn rather, and other boroughs, and it just keeps pushing out and pushing out and pushing out. And that's what's happening here. I mean, it's becoming a real kind of collective space for so many people in so many different areas, of business, of arts, so that's probably going to happen. I mean, we're kind of tucked in, so we're
are you in a
uh,
Joshua Tree kind of isolated place, or is it the city?
we're not Joshua Tree, but almost, I mean, because we're like, as I was saying, 30 minutes out from the strip.
All right.
So, we're far enough away from that that we don't have to know about any of that if we don't want to. And it's interesting because here there's a community of people who want to help society, who want to help raise consciousness level. Because you think of Las Vegas as just this. I mean, and I used to, because I would just, like I would come in
Gig.
and do a show, see a
Right.
casino, see my hotel room, get on the bus or get on the plane and get out. And that would be it. And I'm like, oh, I don't like this because I don't like smoke. I don't like all that, gambling
Hmm.
stuff. So for me, it's like, okay, let me do my show and get out of here. But living here, you see a whole nother aspect, and you see a whole nother level of not only compassion but desire to really help people. There's an organization called Three Squares here, which feeds millions of people. I think to date they've fed over 4 million people, and they feed especially children, like during the week, and then on the weekends they give them backpacks of food to take home in case they need to eat. There's uh, another place called News, and uh, minister and his wife, they started this kind of small little refuge for children because it's in an area that initially was a very seedy area.
Got it.
And the people that hung out in those areas, they were doing what human beings do. They still were having children,
Hmm.
but a lot of those children were either mentally, physically neglected, or just neglected because the parents just weren't there. And so what's going to happen to those children? So these people opened up a space for them to, it's not large enough for them to live there, but they can go there and get meals, or just, commune, or, have a safe space to go to. And there are several places like that here, which is something that I didn't think I would see in
Hmm.
Las Vegas, but it's a beautiful thing. So there are a lot of aspects here to this
I
area.
I keep yeah, anytime someone dare like challenges me about, well, next time you come to Vegas, just come to, I'll see you the real bit, that sort of thing. And I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And then I fall into that trap of just staying in my hotel room until you get the knock where it's time to go to sound check, and then it's. But one day I'm gonna explore it.
It's
Um,
probably a beautiful indigenous community there too, Amir, right?
I'm for it, man. I'm looking for this. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, let
Um,
us know. Let us know when you want to explore. We got an area that you can come check out.
nice, nice. Could you tell me in what is your first musical memory in life?
My first musical memory is when I was in Ohio, which is where I'm from, and
Yellow Springs.
sneaking Yellow Springs, yeah.
You know what? I spent I'll say that, Chappelle, he could talk anybody into anything because that's the type of gift he has. But during the pandemic, um, those trips to Yellow Springs was such a welcome relief to the sort of the stress of what the pandemic was in 2020. So there was half a second where I was considering getting a house in Yellow Springs. I'm still not against the idea. I know
Hmm.
that Quali lives out there. I know Dave convinced a few people in his community to buy property out there and whatnot. So was it always a hippie friendly town since the get, or was that a recent development?
Oh no, it's always been that way. It's always been a really cool little oasis in a very conservative state.
Yeah,
Um,
I was like, those 9 blocks, just those
nine
9 blocks.
blocks exactly.
Yeah, it's like a taste of heaven. Like, oh, I was like, oh, I can get used to this. And then I took the wrong turn
Stayed in the
off
nine
where,
blocks. Look, yeah.
yeah, and I saw the wrong presidential
Ding, ding,
signs. I
ding,
was like,
ding, ding, ding.
right, yeah, I was like, no, let me get back to the blue section.
Yeah.
But yeah. So what was your first musical memory there?
It's, well, there were a couple with my dad because he didn't play an instrument, but he had a collection of records because he liked jazz. So it was me sneaking into his collection and listening and hearing the drums and not knowing what that was because I was like 3 and 4, but really liking what I heard
Mhm.
and being drawn to that. So
What were those records?
Yeah.
he had a lot of Ahmad Jamal. He had some, and that was probably one of his favorite. He had Miles records. He had some Coltrane records. Those were his like favorite three artists.
Hmm.
Which was a great introduction for me. He had modern jazz quartet. He had a kind of a nice little niche of stuff, and so I would sneak in there and listen to probably scratch some of the albums because I was too young to really take care of them well. But yeah, that's probably my first, and maybe my second would be taking a piano lesson with my grandmother,
Hmm.
who was a classical pianist, um, and hanging out with my uncle, who was a musician as well.
What were drums the first weapon of choice for you, or what was the first instrument that you gravitated towards?
Oh, definitely drums. Yeah, and I took a lesson on piano with my grandmother, but I was like, no, I want to play the drum. And my uncle showed me vocalist, and
Hmm.
I'm like, no, I don't really like the guitar. I don't want to play that. I like it, but I don't want to play it. I want to play the drums. So yeah, drums was always the thing that attracted me.
Were you encouraged to pursue it? Because I know that, you know, come around the early 90s, especially once, this is long after Gina Shock and you and Sheila um sort of forged the path. But there was a period when, even when I was a kid, um, in which teachers would actually kind of maybe in a not being aware of how toxic it was, but they would actually, say like, well, you don't want to do the drums, like that's a girl thing, and that we're
Really?
well, yeah, I mean not that explicit, but
A girl thing. I would have never thought that.
I thought it was the opposite.
there was
I
one
thought the
particular.
opposite. Yeah.
I remember like in third grade, like someone wanting to play the drums or whatever, and you know, kind of joke like, "You sure you want to do the drums? Like, you want to come?" As in, like, you sure you want to come to the boys' club? And that, I think he planted in my head that like, oh, drums are just masculine only, which
Oh, okay. The opposite is the opposite.
It
Okay.
is the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I got lucky because my teachers didn't say that in school, and I played in whatever little bands I could play in school,
hmm
the stage band, concert band, the pit orchestra, the orchestra. I did the electronic music class, and I didn't hear that from those teachers. I didn't hear that from my immediate family at home. All I heard was that drums are loud and they're expensive and we can't
Yeah.
afford them. And
Yeah.
no,
Yeah. You need a lot of
that's what I
them.
heard. And, I didn't hear the antagonistic stuff until I started um, going out and doing um, professional gigs. And my first professional gig was when I was 13. I remember I was playing with this kind of funk rock trio, and we our first gig was in this bar. This was when we had already moved out of Ohio. We were living in Connecticut at that time, so now we're on the East Coast, and we're playing in this bar. And I started to get these comments from older men who were in the bar, and they were like,
right.
why are you doing this? This is not, you shouldn't be doing this. You're a girl. And I started hearing stuff like that. And
hmm
um, it certainly affected me. I was kind of like tearing up. Why would they say that to me? And so, but you know what? I had that was a big lesson for me, because I went home and I reset my drums up in the basement and I started playing, and I forgot all about it. And I said, oh, so what they think
Don't
doesn't
matter.
matter at
Yeah.
all, because I still love the drums.
Wait,
There
at
you
the
go.
time, I gotta ask because it feels like you and Terry Lynn Carrington are not that far in age group. So it seems like, are things going parallel at the time? Because you said 13, she started around 12. Was there ever
Were you aware of each other, or
yeah.
Not at all, actually. I
Wow.
was not aware of her until, and she's a little bit younger than me, but I wasn't aware of her until I went to Berkeley, and I was sitting in the hallway waiting for my lesson with Lenny Nelson.
hmm
And she was not of college age at this point. Maybe she was in high school. I don't remember, but I know she wasn't in college. And in walks this gentleman with this young lady. I don't think the mother was there. I think it was just her and her father. And I think they were coming to see Lenny as well. Um, and the father introduced me, and he
Oh,
said, "Oh,
okay.
my dad was a drummer," and so that's how we first met.
Oh,
Wow.
okay, that's what's up.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Who was your North Star in terms of uh like your drumming top five, if you will? Like who did you gravitate towards? Who were your favorite drummers?
My favorite drummers were Art Blakey,
Yes.
Max Roach, Elvin Jones, Tony Williams, um, and then the fifth at that point, when I was like 13, the fifth kind of shifted around a little bit.
hmm
Um, but those were certainly the top four. And then I started to come into knowing Roy Haynes. And then, I was listening to
Still living
like
to this day.
I know my dad is
Still
waiting for this.
playing and
He's like
still
90.
And
playing,
still
Yeah.
playing and looking like
still
he's
playing.
maybe 68 or
And
something
my
like
Yeah.
that.
dad, I'm gonna tell y'all, for my dad is a drummer as well, Cindy, and he's friends with Roy. And he's like, I don't know why y'all are taking so long to have Roy on. And I'm like, is he red? It can he is
Yes, he's fluid. Like I saw
okay.
Roy for his 99th birthday. Like he'll
Oh,
be 100, I
wow.
think yeah, I think in 5 months, I believe.
I love
He's
that.
incredible.
It's
He's
still
He
so
is.
going.
amazing.
He was
Still
my
Yeah,
going.
dad's mentor.
Yeah.
he's so amazing. Uncle Roy, he's
Yeah.
got so much. I mean, he's just done so much in the music and, influenced so many people. It's
Hmm.
interesting because, when I first heard those drummers that I mentioned, I heard Elvin first.
Hmm.
And I heard him before hearing Art Blakey. And as a child, I thought it was swapped around in my head because I thought that Art Blakey came from Elvin, you
Hmm.
know,
I did.
and and as I was listening more and as my social life was expanding to, other friends who were also listening, they were like, no. And then I started studying more and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I saw that both Elvin and Roy came from Art, but they
Hmm.
just went like this. They did two different things, with that triplet, because Elvin played the closed triplets and Roy played those open triplets, but they both came from him and just went in two kind of different directions with that, So that was an amazing thing to me too, to really key in on that with those two drummers. And of course, I call her Blakey, everybody's daddy.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He was
Were
really you knew him, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
I was really close with Art. He used to call me his daughter. I called him Papa, and I used to babysit for his children. So I was at the house all the time. And when I first met him, I had done a gig with two people introduced me to Art, and one was Evelyn Blakey, his daughter. She was a singer, and I was doing some gigs with her, and she taped some of the gigs, and she gave him a recording of one of the gigs that we did together. So it was through that avenue. And then it was also through Wallace Roney, because Wallace started playing with him, and Wallace mentioned him to me and invited me to a record session that Art was doing,
hmm
and so that he was doing with Art, and it was with this was two drummers, George Kawasaki, I think his name was. It's for a
Okay.
Japanese label, and so it was George Kawasaki and the Jazz Messengers. And so I went to this session. I was hanging out, and Art didn't even remember my name at that time. He just called me his redhead friend.
Were you oftentimes on the show, especially when we talk to musicians, um if it's singers, usually the story is, they're in a gospel only household and they occasionally have to sneak to listen to air quote secular music. Um but with jazz aficionados, um were you strictly just gravitated to jazz and jazz only? Or, I mean, you're of age of Michael Jackson. Like, was anything pop having any effect on you, or anything soul having an effect on you? Or was that just incidental background music for you? And when you were like practicing your craft, it was only, jazz music.
Oh, no, no, no. Jazz actually came, but the first stuff was kind of all the pop stuff. In fact, I was going to be the drummer with the Jackson Five in my head. I was the drummer.
I would have loved that.
I was going to be the sixth Jackson. Are you kidding? I was going to be that drummer. But I was lucky because I have a senior sister who loved music. She was a singer at the time. In fact, she even sang with the Brides of Funkenstein. She had like 200 records in her collection. Everybody from James Brown to the Beatles to Coltrane, Miles,
The older
you know,
sister effect.
to
Nice. Okay.
yes. And so I would rate her collection. So I grew up hearing a whole bunch of stuff. Like, and people say, well, how can you as a jazz drummer want to play pop or want to play rock or want to play with Lenny? Or I like that music. I grew up with that, you know.
Hmm.
So for me, it, you know, conceptually not a stretch because that's part of my history and my makeup as well. Um, in fact, the first stuff that I was practicing heavily was actually not jazz; it was rock and pop stuff. And then I started to, you know, a friend of mine who's an older drummer, a friend of our family, he said, you know, you really got to check out Max Roach. And so he wrote out this pattern on a piece of paper, which was Max playing a ride cymbal pattern,
Right.
two and four on the sock cymbal. He was feathering the bass drum on all fours and playing triplets in the left hand. And I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, okay. So
Triplets
I have
versus
to,
2/4.
I gotta, yes, I gotta get,
I thought I
so
was
I
the only
started
one
playing
that had
that.
to go through that. Okay.
Damn,
No, no, no,
should I
no,
ask or should
brother.
I just leave this moment in between y'all? Should I ask? Or
It's it's a it's an exercise in which you can divide your brain, and most teachers do this. So, um, I was going to say, like in my era of drumming, um, well, it was the worst. One, you go to this place and you see this drum set in the corner, and it's sort of like, let me at it, and the teacher be like, no, and then turns over there and it's like a practice pad.
no.
Yeah.
And then you got to sit there and do put, his shiny jump set over there, but he's like, in a year, you get to play on that. And so, but the thing is that,
I thought you was gonna tell us what tripling was.
no, no,
Us-
I
oh,
am,
We're
I
getting
am.
okay.
there.
So
Okay.
the thing is there's an exercise that can teach you how to do different polyrhythms. And so, in other words, um, I would do this thing. There's this exercise where your foot is doing 4/4 meter, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. So while you're doing that, left, right, left, your hands are doing three. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And it's basically two time signatures. It's teaching your limbs, your hands and your feet to have
Their own
uh
brains.
Independence in a way, like
Independence and separation.
yeah.
yeah, and muscle memory also at the same time. So,
Hmm.
but I would
Hmm.
have to do that for an hour. Literally, he would just read the paper and just like, all right, go do your thing for an hour. Literally, left, right, right, left, left, and your foot's doing right, left, left at the same time. So it it's allegedly supposed to make you a better drummer. What 5 albums, since you had access to this, and this is one of my favorite questions, what 5 albums of your formative years would you say are like the records that defined you? And I don't mean as, Cindy Blackman, the artist and the product, but just like House Burning Down. What 5 albums would you say? Like what albums define your childhood?
Um, they would be Love Supreme. They would be Four and More.
Mm.
Um,
Miles Davis, Four More.
yes, Miles Davis, Four and More. Um, and if I go back a little further, I'd have to say um, probably I used to listen to I used to listen to Shaka Khan and Rufus a lot. So
Which
it would
album?
be um the one with what's the one with Tell Me Something Good on it?
Rags to Rufus.
Rags to Rufus. Rags to Rufus. Um, and probably there were a couple of Betty Davis albums that I used to listen to all the time.
So you were hip
Um,
to Betty Davis at the time in
oh
real
yeah,
time.
oh yeah,
Oh,
oh yeah. Because my sister, like I said, she was a singer, and that was one of her favorites. So I was listening to Betty Davis all the time. I'm a huge Betty Davis fan. Love, love Betty Davis.
I can
Yeah.
see that.
So,
I can see it.
um,
that's what's
so
up.
those would be a few, and then probably let's see. I used to listen to some Tower Power records a lot. Um,
Dave. All right, Dave Garibaldi.
David Garibaldi. I used to listen to Earth, Wind and Fire a lot, and I saw them live actually, um, a little bit later. But those were some of the records that I listened to, and of course, I listened to every single Jackson 5 record.
Okay.
When I was really young. Um,
Right.
but those were some of the records that I listened to in the very, very, very beginning
When did you leave Yellow Springs?
when I was 11.
Okay. Where did you move?
Connecticut. We moved to Bristol, Connecticut was the first place. And at that point, uh, I had little toy drum sets, never a real drum set yet,
Hmm.
just getting these little kits that would just
Break.
disintegrate. Yeah, just break up in like a day or two. And then I have to beg for another one and have to wait until my parents would give me another one. And then when we moved to Connecticut, that's when I got my first student model kit. But before that, when I didn't have a drum kit, I found a little friend who was a drummer. And I used to go to his house. He lived across the fence from us, and there was a hole in our fence, in the fence separating these two neighborhoods. And so I used to crawl under that fence and go to his house, and we would put on records. Like he was really into David Garibaldi, so we would put on Tower Power records, and we both play.
Squib
We
cake battles.
Yeah, squib cake, man,
yeah,
all
Squib
day.
cake
and we just
battles.
take turns. He'd play to the song, and then I would play to the song, and then we would go, and you know, um, it was really cool. He was pretty cool young kid because he was already studying with Tyrone Lampkin, and he was telling me, like, what they were going through rudimentally. And then I joined a fife and drum corps. So that
Mhm.
actually was the first band that I played in, was a fife and drum corps. Um,
I'm
and that
sorry.
was
What is that,
all
Cindy? A fife and drum corps? Is that like
fife
a?
and drum corps, little flutes with
Snare drums.
Oh,
drums, the marching stuff.
yeah. Okay. Got you.
Yeah,
Got you.
yeah.
So that's
So
not like Florida A&M level,
Right.
tossing the six up in the air and turning around and playing That's the Way I Like It. It's more like reenacting of the
Strap on them.
forefathers.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, wow, you're an anomaly. So you've not mentioned the word church yet. So you've had no beginning or foundation like playing in your church choir, none of those things. Like
Yeah.
this is a very it's very unusual to find a black musician that somehow didn't have to go through that path or that journey. So you never like were a player in a church or any of those things?
I did play a little bit in my church.
Okay.
And I started out in the choir, and we we were singing something, and I was belting out something so loud, and the guy was like, "Hey."
Uh,
He was like, "Hey, hey, hey," And I said, "Actually, I'd really rather play drums." And he said, "You play drums?" And I said, "Yeah." And so they let me bring my drums down, and I played. And so I did that for a little bit. I didn't do that too much, but I
Okay.
did that a little bit, just myself and the organist. But also, I played a teeny bit with my grandmother because she played pipe organ in her church, which was in a different town. So I wasn't, doing that a lot. But she would bring me in, like for these special events, like for Christmas, the little drummer boy, but now
Hmm.
it's little drummer girl, and stuff like that. So I played with her in her church as well.
wait, we didn't ask. Where your people from, Cindy? I know you're from Ohio, but where your people from?
Uh,
Oh, you
Ohio, Kentucky,
okay.
all Midwest,
Oh,
basically.
so the entire family's from Yellow Springs or the Midwest.
Yeah, Midwest, like Chicago,
Oh, y'all don't have any
Kentucky,
Southern roots. Okay, okay. Okay.
Ohio. No Southern roots. No.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
This is a first for everything. I like when we get musicians from,
No church, no South. What is the
yeah,
world coming to?
this is awesome.
This is
Okay.
insane.
At what point do you find other musicians that you want to play with?
I started in junior high school playing with the stage band. We had a concert band. And in high school, I played with this again, the stage band, the concert band, um, the orchestra, and then I played also in the pit orchestra, which we played for performances. They would do Broadway type performances, but high school level.
Mm-hmm.
So I played in that. And in high school is probably when I started, finding other people who were my age. At 13, really, the first band that I played with was all older musicians,
Right.
a guitarist and bassist who were friends with my older sister.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I met them through her, and started playing with them. But right after that, I started finding young cats who were my age. But there was definitely a difference in my taste for music and in kind of their taste for music, because we had so many records and so much music that was
You were way more advanced.
well, the music was on the cusp of certainly it was adventuresome and innovative, because I
Mm-hmm.
was able to be exposed to the innovators, Art and Max and Roy and Miles and Coltrane and all these incredible people. And a lot of my peers, they were into Kansas and Chicago and Tower Power and stuff like that, which was all cool. And
Mm-hmm.
we used to play those songs. Um, there was a bass player who was heavily into that stuff, and we became friends, really best friends. And he would leave his amp and his bass at my house, and so we would play, like, especially in the summer, every day. That's what we were doing. We would put on records and then we would put on records and play to the record. Okay, now we got that, let's play it ourselves. So we were doing that all the time. It kind of And then there were some scattered musicians around the area that I lived in who were also into jazz and also into, like pushing the envelope a little bit. But I really didn't get into that kind of community that was full of cats my age that wanted to do that until I went to Berkeley.
Did you, so at one point, did you think like, wow, like I'm the only young person I know that plays like how an adult plays?
Um,
Did you think that there were other people? Because I went through that kind of all my life. Like my dad was an oldies doo-wop singer, so I grew up with all of his musicians. And I started playing with my dad when I was 12, and they make a big deal of it in concert. Like, oh my God, a 12-year-old wonder kind. Like, so I kind of, by 14, 15, I had the swagger, like, yeah, I'm the only young kid that sounds like you old cats. And then the second day already, like
Humbling.
Miles Davis is calling for like Christian McBride and Joey DeFrancesco to like gig with him. And the day that Kenny Garrett got into a situation, not Kenny Garrett, Kenny Kirkland, I think, got into a situation, and Joey DeFrancesco had to like fly out to like literally coming to my school. I thought I was hot shit, and then by the first week, and mind you, like Boys to Men also go to this school. Like suddenly, I'm getting a wake up call. Like, not only are people your age and younger like musicians, but they're like dusting your ass right now. You you can't rely on you being Lee Andrews' little kid like at Radio City Music Hall, like my little 13-year-old son, like, hey dad, like I so it was a wake-up call. Actually, you know what? This is an apropos episode. I've had two wake-up calls courtesy of Cindy Blackman, and it's just hitting me right now. As I was saying about my experiences in high school, like thinking I was hot shit, and suddenly, uh, you know, real musicians are dusting me. It gave me a wake-up call, but then it just hit me that you're responsible for two wake-up calls for me. But I'll
He's
get
going
into
to
that
tell us
part
what they
later.
are. He's not going to tell us.
Nope.
No. Okay.
Good storyteller.
Number one. All right. Number one.
Great
Do
suspense.
you remember the first time we played together?
Oh, okay, this
of
is good.
course.
Okay. So I always wanted to ask you. So there was this thing. Uh, this was, you know what? This had to be maybe 3 months after 9/11. I remember this being like, so you remember that 2 month, 3 month post 9/11? Are we in the book of Revelations? Is this the apocalypse? Is it, that feeling that we also said in 2020, like, oh, is this the end of the world? But there was a really surreal period after 9/11. New Yorkers were real nice to each other. And hey, how are you
Mhm.
making, that sort of thing. It was a very surreal feeling in the air. Someone, I know it's for Fashion Week. Someone had said it might have been, there's two Fashion Weeks in New York. So this might be February of the next year of 2002. Um, but they wanted you and I to just do a one-on-one drum thing uh at this boutique thing. And I had never, I just said, yeah, sure. I don't, and didn't prepare for it. And I remember we briefly spoke backstage, like, so what are we supposed to do? And they're
Huh?
like,
Y'all briefly spoke before you went on, and it was just
yeah.
y'all two.
I mean, like even
He's
before
a
we do,
professional musician.
it's not.
Wow, I'm sorry. Okay, you're right.
Just act like it. That's Questlove Supreme. Like literally, I show up like minutes
That's true.
before. Like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Like
Okay,
that's
that's
kind
true.
of. And I was like, so what do we do? And she's like, we just play. And I was like, okay, yeah, I could do that. And man,
Okay, y'all need to talk us through this. Like, I need to.
she she went from she went from zero to Autobahn 200 miles an hour.
I know she did.
Could you not keep
What
up,
did
Amir?
you
What
do,
happened?
Ahmir? What did you
Yo,
She went
do?
giant steps. You went baby steps. What the fuck happened?
do you
Shut
remember
up, Phil.
do you remember the first time in life, like out of shape, where like you're like you went jogging? You remember the first time like you
Yes.
jogged your first
You
mile
want to die?
and it was like it was like some GI Jane basic training thing, like
G.I. Jane.
dog. I There
In
was a
my mind, you
second,
just hit the end and you got me like, all right, fuck it.
dude. There was a second hand. There was a digital clock that was in the corner, and that was the slowest I ever saw seconds go by. And like 43 seconds went by, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna die. Like
There it is.
she, I mean, it was the fastest, it was the loudest, fastest thing ever. And that night, I will say, was the night. And that night, yeah, I was I was I was 438 at my most weight.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay. Okay.
I got back to my hotel. Like I made that gig. I got through that gig by the skin of my teeth.
Hmm.
And I remember going back to my hotel and just looking at, it was one of the moments where you look yourself in the mirror and you're just like,
It's not gonna work.
I got a change as that. It wasn't a rock bottom low place,
Mm.
but I definitely remember by like minute six, I don't know how she does this. Like I've never gone this. Like my level of drum solo is like maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, and that's it. But I was like, one, my drumming technique is way under advanced, under cooked. I got to
And
work on that.
are we tripping and seeing that it looks like Cindy gives more of her body too in the as she's drumming, like she just your whole body, all your limbs.
Yeah, I was watching, just like, oh wow, she puts her like, which my real question, I had to get in that story. So yes,
Yeah.
that's the night where I said I have to lose weight, and subsequently I lost 200 pounds. But
Oh,
Good
that was
job.
the night where I was just like, oh God, this is a sport. This is not, this is
It's a sport.
athleticism. And I made a lane for myself where you're playing break beats and keeping the pocket. less is more. I'm just using my wrist. She was using her
Her whole
body.
body, yeah.
So yeah, that taught me
Oh
two
yeah,
lessons
Cindy.
about my health and my playing. But I'll ask you, is it, and I often have this when I'm in a situation that I don't musically control. So I'll ask you, is there ever a time where I'm certain, based on people seeing the Lenny videos and your Tony influence or whatnot, are there ever times where like you just don't feel like
Hmm.
rocking out with it? Well, I can't
With the
use
cock
that
out.
term.
She got her
Air
cock.
quote, rocking out with your cock out. Like, is are there times where it's just like you feel this pressure that you have to go from 0 to 900 miles per hour every show you've ever done in the rest of your life? Like, is there pressure where you just don't feel like doing that?
Not for me.
that
I love 90 miles an hour. I love
was a
100
real
miles an
Is
hour.
answer.
it therapeutic?
I love the velocity of all of that. But before we get into more of that, I just want to say that when we played together, I was like, man, this dude, I mean, and I heard you on record and I loved your playing, but to play with you, your groove was so intensely beautiful and so in the pocket. I was like, okay,
That's
yes,
all I
man.
had.
That,
I
Stop
had a
that.
pocket. I didn't have velocity or strength or
Let her talk.
dynamics.
Take
Still,
these
still
flowers. Shut
what you
up.
got.
Let her talk.
Still what you got.
let me tell you something. I loved it. I thought it was awesome, So that was,
You're
you
very
know,
kind. Thank you.
really, no, it's the truth, man. I loved it. I thought it was so great. So it was, for me, it was really, really great to play with you and feel where you're feeling it. It's interesting because um I went to see Tony at the Vanguard one time, and you've been to the Vanguard, that little
Mm-hmm.
bench that they have. So that's drummers row. So of
Right,
course I
right,
got there early so I could be as close to Tony as possible in drummers row.
right.
So the drums are here and I'm right here. So I'm just watching Tony, not paying attention to anything else that's going on in the room because I'm focused on him, of course, as we all would be. And there were people sitting next to me, but I don't know who they are, just somebody. I don't know who it was. So somebody on my left. And I'm watching him, and all of a sudden there's like a little commotion on my on my left side. I didn't know what it was. Somebody pushed the person out of the way who was sitting next to me and sat down next to me, just plopped down. And I looked, and it's Art Blakey, who I tell you was already my papa. He sat down next to me and he put his arm around me. And so he's listening, he's watching Tony like I'm watching Tony. And he's patting on my shoulder,
Ooh.
where he's feeling the beat. And Tony's playing where he's feeling the beat. And Tony was, like, so you got the middle of the beat, you got behind the beat, you got above the beat, you got all these little areas where you can push, where that center is, and you can push the
Hmm.
center, you can be in the center, you can be behind it. And we know the cats that we love kind of where they go. So
Right.
Tony is like, either center or pushing. And so he was pushing, and Art was feeling it back here. So the way to feel, for me to feel Art tapping on my shoulder where he felt
The one
the
was,
yes, and where he felt the time and where Tony was playing it was mind blowing. It was like it was so
I'm always that
incredible.
person.
Yeah.
Where my one is, where someone's one is not, and then you're,
Always. You're always behind the beat, Ahmir. That's your thing. That's always your thing.
yeah.
And I don't mean that meanly. I mean, like, that's your whole
No,
thing.
that's my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But
I wanted to
it
ask a
was
question.
amazing.
Can I ask a question about to two of like the greatest drummers that ever lived? Like when are you timekeeper and when are you musician? When are you melodic instrument? When are you rhythmic instrument? I feel like that to me, always in drummers who do a lot of it, like where we are talking about how you feel it. Like, how do you feel yourself as a musician? I guess is the question.
Hmm.
Uh,
Mm.
I'll go first.
Stumper. All right, I'll take
Well,
it.
no. It's so this is weird. And this is coming right off the residency I did at Blue Note. Um, this year I'm about, you know, uh, crossing the boundaries of whatever makes me uncomfortable and dive into it. And, getting out of my comfort zone. And it's been a minute since I've done a jazz gig. So I did like a week of gigs with David Murray. Um, and actually, also the third lesson I learned was I'm never doing a duo show ever again. So I did a trio show, David Murray and Ray Angry. And I realized that not being in a situation where, you only have three musicians and it's a saxophone and a keyboard player. And there's so much, like half of me, I'm less a heart drummer, more of a brain drummer, because I'm literally thinking, okay, so we don't have a guitar player or a bass player. So my foot's gonna have to keep the pace on bass. And that like I'm a very calculating drummer because I'm used to being a traffic cop for the Roots. And I know that drumming is purely a heart or a gut thing. It's gut. We say the heart. It's better marketing to say heart. But um I'm not necessarily a heart drummer. So, I'm also wondering that same question that you just asked, Bill, because I'm going to do a set of gigs with Glasper as a
Mm.
duo.
Mm.
Right. And again, I
Mm.
think to be a drummer is also to be like super vulnerable because you don't know what's going to happen next. It's not like you can calculate exactly what you're going to do. So just from a psychological aspect, I'm trying to do more jazz gigs so that I
But you just
become
said you don't like duos, and you're gonna do another one with Robert. Okay.
well because I can't preach the gospel and then don't practice what I preach. And I'm
Wow.
all about getting out of your comfort zone. Yeah, it scares me to death. And I freaked out on Glasper one night, like, I don't know this is gonna work, man. Like, because I'm thinking, I'm thinking.
Heavy.
And I think to really be an effective musician, you have to stop thinking and just do. And it's so hard for me to just trust not being in control, like not planning the map out days beforehand. So, do you feel as though you're the traffic cop that controls everyone, or are you part of the color making of music?
I think it's kind of situational depending on, what the situation is that you're playing. But for me, um, I think you're everything because, if you keep, for me, when I keep my options open, um, then I have all these different pathways that I can go down and always thinking about giving the music what it needs at that time. So some situations, and every situation is different. I learned that from Ron Carter. One situation might need you to be a certain thing. One situation might need you to be something else. And then there are some situations where you can just be kind of everything, you know. And
Can you give us some examples? Because I know people are thinking like, so when you're doing your jazz thing, or when you're doing it with Lenny, like when you're with Lenny, are you free, or are you like all
Lenny's
those
thing
things?
it's rock funk, and it's, you know you're playing that groove. You're gonna slam that groove and play that until the cows come home, with some exciting things that you're doing fill wise around that when it's needed. But you're basically playing the groove, and Lenny's thing is parts. You're playing the parts from the records that he's recorded. So for me, I just made those parts my own, as I own them. Okay, you played it on the record, but this is mine right now. So that's the way I approach that. And then I would add little things, you know, um, kind of just to lift the music, because now we're playing live, and also to satisfy myself, to put, to interject something. Um, but that's a situation where, you're just, it's the end game, and the goal is the groove and to be exciting.
So that's
Um,
coloring. So in Ahmir's terms, that would be when you're in that situation, you're doing more of the coloring. You don't have to be traffic copping. You're
No, you're traffic copping, because
oh,
you're playing the groove,
oh,
and
okay.
you're basically sticking to that. But there are situations where, so like when I play with Carlos, you have that because every music has to feel good, right? So you have that, but also you're allowed to expand and expound and be a little more free. Um, and so then that means you can interject. Um, with my own band, I do a combination of stuff because I love grooving, but I also love interjection. I love having conversation. I love um, stating the groove, but I also love hearing it in my head and playing around it, you know. Um, and I think, it's important to understand that the groove is not just up to the drummer, it's up to everybody. So, there are times when you swap roles with people. You pass the ball around. Like maybe the bass player is the one who's holding it down, and you're kind of flowering around, and then maybe you're both doing it at the same time. There's a lot of different ways to approach the music when you're playing in situations that are, I'll say, freer, or uh, more able to allow interjection and kind of freedom of conversation. And some situations that's not apropos for, but in other situations it is. So that's what I was saying earlier. It's kind of situational depending on what you're playing, who you're playing with. Like let's say you're dating someone, and you're dating this guy, and he likes sci-fi movies. So with him, you're going to go see sci-fi movies. But then if you're dating some other person following year, and they don't like movies, they like opera. So then maybe you're going to go to an opera with this person. It's just situational. So it just depends on what you do and what you like as a combination,
You
in
adjust.
terms of a group. Yeah, you adjust. Yes.
Question. Because I think the very first album of yours in which I became aware was the Code Red project with Steve Coleman. At any point were you being wooed by the M-Bass collective at all to join them? M-Bass being Steve
Steve
Coleman, Greg
Coleman.
Osby, Jerry Allen, Cassandra, I guess, is a member of M-Bass. Basically the jazz native tongues, the
Oh,
like were they trying to recruit you to be part of their clique, or by
Um,
then that
I talked to Steve about that a little bit at one point, but I had a different clique. I was in another
oh,
clique.
so who was your clique then?
Wallace,
Okay.
his whole team. That was kind of my clique. Wallace, Antoine, that kind of clique, because we were just so into Miles and Tony. That was our thing. So that was kind of where um, my head was at, and I didn't really want to know about much else at that point.
Yeah, man. Wallace, man, that cat. I got to work with him briefly on we used him on Common's Electric Circus album, and man, incredible player. Like I think
Yeah.
Wallace probably, so weird that when I knew that, even the moment in March of 2020 where we were trying to figure out whether or not, like, if COVID was going to be like a real thing or just like a thing where it's like, okay, we're just in the house for a couple days and they'll spray some raid outside and then we'll be cool, and like that sort of thing. Wallace was one of the first casualties of COVID that
Mhm.
made me know that
Mhm.
instantly this is
We
serious.
just
Yeah, just can you describe what your years of playing with him? Like, what was he like?
He was a true musician, a true student of the music, and somebody who was unrelentless in wanting to um, push his own envelope in terms of a player, a musician, and push the envelope of the music. He was really incredible. Like, you know, it'd be, well, we were in a relationship for like 11 years, and
Hmm.
it would be a race in the morning to see who got to their instrument first, who got to the piano first, who got to the record player first. It was incredible because this guy was just really, really so inspired. He just lived the music. It was really amazing to see. And, he was such a genius. His harmonic knowledge, his knowledge of the drums. I don't know if you ever talked to him about the drums, but his knowledge of the drums was incredible. I could talk to him about drumming in more depth and detail than I can talk to most drummers about. I mean, this guy was really into the music,
He literally was music. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And I learned so much from him. I learned harmony from him. I learned, about playing in an ensemble to him from him. It just so many things that he was just already very advanced at such a young age. So for me, for my peer group, to me, he was like the genius of my peer group.
Okay. You said something and it quasi triggered me, and I gotta ask you this. Okay, so what I purposely in my professional life, in my romantic life, was like, I'm never
Or dated.
ever dating a creative
Yes.
in my same field.
Yes.
And because I've watched like singers together, they be harmonizing 24/7. And
Yikes.
like there's one rule I've ever had, like the I don't care how fine
Yeah.
the individual is.
Yup.
Like, no, and seriously, there've been some conversations had recent, like, well, what was it about me? Like, was it my brother? And always had I've always had an anti-musician creative policy.
I mean, all
Like,
human beings do, not to mention musicians, Ahmir. Keep in mind that all girls get told not to date musicians. I'm a daughter
oh,
of a
because we're
drummer.
dogs, right?
Right.
We
So
told,
the
100%.
fact, exactly. So I'm
right.
just saying, yes, all of that.
And I think a lot of that had to do with it because there have been some times where like I would always gun for like adjacent, like the assistant, someone that's kind of someone that understands the industry. So if I
Right.
say like,
Enough
hey, I got
to
a
know the
press
late
junket,
nights.
right? Not a total civilian, but just
Yeah.
not. But for me,
Yeah.
my worst nightmare is I think maybe once I started seeing a singer, but then that's all we talked about. What is it like to be in a relationship?
On purpose.
Yeah, on purpose with a
On
creative.
purpose.
Because to me, I feel like that's oil and water. I feel like that's church and state. Like when I come home, I want to, and it's weird because I'm seeing someone right now that's like a movie head. And I actually like discussing movies with her and those sort of things. And like we have movie nights and all the discussions and in depth and listen to podcasts together about filmmaking techniques and all those things. But
But
but for you, how does that work? Like, ooh, I'm sorry.
He
And you
said
make
it
it look
literally.
good. She makes it look
that was
admirable.
a very
That's funny.
roundabout
You're
question.
cracking me up right now. I gotta tell you, man, you're making me laugh so hard. Um, you know, um, the relationship that I had with Wallace was incredible because we were so young. We were like 20,
Oh,
when we
okay.
got together, and we were just going for it all the time, and so it was very inspiring to me. Um, and the issue became when the relationship split. It's like, okay, now we do, and not only we split as a couple, but my music partner, we split, and okay, this is not happening. I'm never doing that again. I am never dating a musician ever again because when if it does
Divide
split,
the
then
record collection.
it's like, well, wait a minute. Okay, this is not happening. So at that point, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that again, ever, ever. And so the next person that I dated was not a musician at all, loved music, but was not a musician.
Was that weird?
Um, no, because this person was very supportive, so that it wasn't weird because he loved music,
I
But I'm
would.
weird in terms of like, if you want to talk about, you know, Tony Williams is Nefertiti. You know what I
No,
mean?
those conversations didn't happen, because not like that, because it would be like the way that he would describe something, it would it was interesting to me to hear his take on stuff because he was so not a musician. He would say, well, that person sounds like wood. Sounds like wood.
Hmm.
That sounds like wood. So it was just kind of funny to me. So my in-depth music conversations were with my friends, my music friends. They were not with that person because that just didn't happen.
Which is
And
okay
then,
too.
which is okay too. That was okay. But then when I met Carlos, I was like, there's a lot in common, but it wasn't, it was more the spiritual path that he was on that grabbed me. I hadn't been with somebody and I was missing that. That's what I was looking for most. The fact that he was a musician was
Hmm.
secondary. The spiritual path won for me because that's what I was looking for. Somebody on a spiritual path. I needed that. Um,
Right.
and the music thing with him um, is there, and we talk about it all the time. But he's such a sage with other things that is just a whole another level of stuff that goes on. So sometimes we're not talking about music. We're talking about philosophy. We're talking about spirituality. We're talking about, you know, things that we both want to do, uplifting the consciousness of humanity. So it's a whole nother thing. And we do it through music, yes, but we also do it, he does it through streams and through talking to people in different ways. You've spoken to him. So it's a
Yeah.
whole nother level now with him. It's a whole nother level of depth and dimension in what we talk about, you know.
Wait, can I ask uh, I don't know if this is out of line question or whatever, but assuming that you, your life partner is Carlos Santana, I would always imagine that like for me, the most ideal situation. So yeah, it kind of when I had my first conversation with him was also a little bit past the pandemic where I had my spiritual awakening as well. And got into the things I used to laugh at. I used to look at cats like Carlos, like burnt out hippie and, all that stuff. And then suddenly I morphed into the person I used to laugh at. Like
You passed him.
started
I
doing
know.
yoga and started meditating and started sound baths and like all those things I used to laugh at people. And for me, um, when I went to my first sound bath, I was just like, yo, this is an ideal musical situation I wouldn't mind being in. That's not like a job or me playing a gig, but like the idea of watching people play. There were kalimbas there. There were various, you know, Hertz, Hert, like bells and Koshi bells and all those things or whatever. Do you guys like routinely do like circles of music together as a couple or like with groups of people or
Not like that,
it
no. No, never.
Okay, I was just having that romantic.
No, we don't. We don't do any of that
In my
stuff.
mind,
I
I'm
mean,
thinking like
we
ayahuasca.
listen to
Oh,
stuff, and he comes up with all these playlists, and we go through that kind of stuff, and of course he loves the drums, so we talk about the drums.
Mhm.
And but it's not like we're doing music circles or even you know jamming all the time. That's like I have drums in the house, but I rarely play in the house. I go to the studio to play because I like to focus and be, and he likes to sit in the living room and play. So he plays there and I go to the studio and play. So, you
Right.
know, so it which is actually good because then you're giving the person their own space. So we have this stuff where we come together, and then we also have our own space to explore the way we want to, or just be alone with our instruments, which is something that, as you're a musician too, and
Right.
we need that. We that's part of it's part of the deal.
It, I was asking because like there was a period where Don Cherry would often involve all of his family into recordings. Like, it, yes, he recorded it and released it, but I know that the genesis of a lot of those recordings were just like being at home, doing chanting around the house, and that sort of thing. So in my
We
mind, I don't know. I just imagine you two as this utopian couple.
They are
no,
just
we
without
actually,
the
all
sound
do.
bath.
I'll tell you, actually, and you're sparking a memory. We did do something like that one time. Um, and it was Carlos's idea. We had a bunch of family over. This is when we lived in California. We had a bunch of family over, and there was, without getting into detail, there was something that needed to be kind of healed. And so
Sound
Carlos's
healing.
suggestion was that we everybody start playing congas and playing drums so this is when my dad was living. He was, aunt who was living at that time, she was kind of tapping, everybody was playing and a drum or picked up a percussion thing. That's the only time we've ever done that, and it was kind of like a very healing experience because that was what was needed. But we're not like the music circle, kumbaya
People
people
think.
that
Sorry, because then my next question was, so we're gonna come.
Yeah, that was
Can you
totally an
plan one
invite
for
for a drum.
Ahmir,
That was
please?
a drum circle invite, like so bad. That was so
Wait,
great.
wait,
It needs to
wait.
happen. It looks like it
you know
needs
what,
to.
if you came over to the house, we'd probably do it with you,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Well,
That's it.
yeah, I specifically said to him that when I get to the place, and this will happen in 2025. Well, I can't plan it, but uh, when I decide or make the decision to do my first ayahuasca journey, I wanted him to be present to play
Still
music.
no. So I
But
thought you had already done that, Ahmir. Oh,
no, no,
okay.
no, no. I'm not there.
Okay.
I'm still in the shallow part of
Okay.
the shallow part of the pool.
On that note, though, can I ask Cindy, like on a daily, as far as like a routine of what it takes spiritually and physically for you to present what I see right now? Is there something that you
You look
do?
amazing, by the way.
Yeah,
But
like, but I need to know
it's a
spiritually
very
and
glowy
physically.
thing. Yes.
Yeah,
For sure.
thank you, thank you, thank
yeah.
you. I do a lot of different stuff. So I've always been into like through school, my thing was sports and drums. So I've always been into being healthy. My older sister who had all those records, she also got me into juicing at a very young age and to, eating a healthy way. So, I do a lot of exercise. I was into yoga a lot at one point. I haven't been into yoga lately, but at this point, I do Tai Chi. I've done other martial arts too. Right now, it's Tai Chi. I do supplements. I drink a lot of water. I try to rest. I get
No meat.
into meditation. I'm a vegan.
Good. Okay, I see this. So
Yeah.
wait, so my next question is, it's funny because I just saw you perform the VMAs, and I was wondering in those situations, 20 years later, there are a lot of baby Cindy Blackmans now. Like folks were very purposeful in having a female drummer in their bands and things of that nature. So I'm wondering, like in those situations like the VMAs, do you get a lot of the young female drummers coming to you and saying, "Oh my God, you're my hero. How do you do the things that you do?" and all of that, or not? Literally, I had that thought of the VMAs. I was like, there should be a fan out for Cindy Blackman right now behind stage. Was it?
Oh, thank you. I've had some of that,
Okay.
and it's always an honor if somebody says that they were inspired by you or influenced by you or whatever, because, that's part of it. You want the music to grow and you want the music to live on, and you want people to have no fear with going for something, a young boy or young girl, or a person who just feels that they've been disallowed to get into some sort of creative endeavor that they're inspired by. You want people to understand, no, this is, you can play, you go for it. So that's always an honor to know that and get any of that, and if that's the case, I feel good about that.
Well, the reason I asked you that on the back of the other question is because I wanted to know if those women or those women, men, and others understand all of the things it takes that you just like, even the things you just told us physically that it takes to be Cindy Blackman in that way. That's why I was asking that too. Like,
Well,
Mm-hmm.
can I ask the question before that? Well, the
yeah,
question that should go before that question.
yeah.
Um, how easy was it for you? Because I do know that if one things that jazz musicians are known for are their seriousness, or their earnestness. Um, and Branford told me uh, eh, how his life had to adjust once he had to let his community know that he was going to play with Sting. You know,
Mm,
the
mm.
certain people felt betrayed, and that sort of thing. But Branford is also kind of in the zero fucks lane. Um, in playing with Lenny, you know, did your community ever sort of scoff at you like, well, you're a serious musician. Why would you want to do these things or whatever? Like, what was the general, was there resistance on your part? Or how did Lenny convince you to even play? Because I know that for the first part of Let Love Rule, Zorro was Lenny's original drummer. And then you came in um, shortly thereafter.
It's yeah, some people kind of scoffed at it, well, why would you want to do that? But as I was saying before, I grew up with a lot of different musics in my house, and so I like a lot of different musics. I liked playing in these stadiums with him, and I could see everybody dancing and everybody grooving. I like being responsible for making people feel that good, for making people
Mhm.
want to dance, making people want to move. I like being in that seat. And when I first played with him, um, I actually didn't even really know who Lenny was, because I didn't know his music. Yeah, I wasn't, I wanted to play with Miles Davis, and I wanted to play with, Freddie Hubbard. That was my focus. I was like, how can I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And so I was not thinking about playing rock or playing pop or funk or anything like that at that time, because I was just focused on doing that. Um, and Antoine turned me on to Lenny, and he
Okay.
was like, "Oh, I have this friend who's, um, he's a rock and roll guy who likes Gretsch drums and K Zildjian cymbals. Do you want to meet him?" I'm like, "Wow, he's got ears. Okay, I'd love to
Uh,
meet him." He likes that. Then I know, and he's like, "Yeah, he likes Miles and he likes Coltrane." I'm like, "Okay, that sounds like a cool person. I'd love to
Right.
meet him." And he said, well, he's been looking for a drummer for like a year and a half. Maybe I don't have his number, but he calls me every once in a while. And if he's still looking, would you be interested in talking to him? And I said, yeah, he sounds cool. And at that point, I
Wow.
still hadn't heard his music. And he said, well, he's the guy who he was married to Lisa Bonet. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I know Lisa because I know the Cosby Show. We
Right.
grew up on that. And so I actually kind of just played for him on the phone, like some months later, Antoine called me and it was like, yeah, I got Lenny, I got Lenny on the line. And so he kind of did a three-way or whatever.
Oh my
And
God.
Lenny said, do you have drums in your house? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, play something. So I said, okay. And I got on and I started playing. I played for a long time, like maybe long time for a phone call, like maybe 5 minutes. And then I got off and I said, well, this phone speaker is small and I wasn't playing soft. I said, could you hear it? Was it clear? And he said, yeah, I'm in LA. Can you fly out here right now? And I said, okay. I wasn't doing anything. And so
Right.
the next morning at like 6 a.m., I had a flight. Um, and he said, pack for 2 days, come out, no strings attached, just play with my band, see how it feels, and then I'll send you home. And I thought, oh, cool. I've never been to LA. This will be a chance for me to meet some new musicians. I'll go and just play and then I'll come home. And I went out and his manager or somebody, when they found out that I was coming, they made an announcement and called like an audition. So when I got there, and I'll skip a few steps. We went to the place where he was staying, and
Hmm.
there were no instruments there. Like they were getting some rental gear from SIR or somewhere, and they hadn't showed up yet. And I'm sitting there waiting, and I see a cat come in with like you know a bass drum pedal. I saw somebody else come in with a stick bag. And at first I was thinking, well, that's an odd way to bring in the drums. And I'm like, wait a minute, no, these are drummers.
Ah.
There were like 40 drummers showed up to audition for him. And and I had jet lag, so I was like, okay, still no gears here. I'm gonna go outside and just chill out for a minute. So I went outside on a lawn chair and I fell asleep. And the assistant, Lenny's assistant, came and she was like, Cindy, Lenny started the auditions. He wanted you to play first, but he couldn't find you, so he already started. You got to come now. So I was, oh, okay. I came and I auditioned and played, and fortunately for me, he said, okay, no, this is the auditions are over. I'm going to
No
take
more
her.
auditions.
And yeah, and which
That's what
was
you wanted to hear.
fortunate for me, but then his manager was like, yeah, but you got like 39 other people out there.
Hmm.
It's kind of not cool if you don't hear them. So, he heard them and he heard one other guy in there that he liked. And then there was a drummer coming from London, Michael Lee. He arrived the next day. So the following day,
Mm.
Lenny had me play and the other drummer play, me play, the other drummer play. He still chose me. Then he had me do the same thing with Michael Lee. And he still chose me, which was, an honor. And God, rest in peace, Michael Lee. He was a great drummer. He ended up playing with uh, Robert Plant.
Okay.
And he passed really early. So that's why I say rest in peace. He was really fantastic. But at any rate, at that point, it had already been the 2 days. So I already used up whatever clothing I had for my little 2 day stay.
I was about to ask you what
Um,
you were. I
but
didn't. What the,
I ended up staying for 2 weeks and learning his music. And at the end of that, we did "Are You Gonna Go My Way?" That
and
video.
was the aesthetic? Was y'all aesthetic just natural? I'm just saying visually. Was the aesthetic always just natural? Y'all walked in with whatever you look like, and it was like, yeah.
It was pretty
Or
natural. It was natural. Yeah, it was really pretty natural. Because I had my little afro and my little
yeah.
pony stuff, and that was kind of his vibe, and so it was pretty natural right away. I
It's
mean,
Well,
kind of
he
fascinating,
knew
you and
of
Ahmir.
you.
Yeah.
He knew of you already because I remember reading a write up in Vibe magazine about you before you joined Lenny.
Really?
oh,
Uh,
okay.
I think Tate interviewed you. Either Tate or Dream Hampton interviewed you. I forget who it was, but like, did he not know about you already, or was that the first time both of you were kind of getting into each other?
I remember that vibe interview, and I don't know. I don't. To my recollection, he didn't know of me beforehand.
Okay.
Before Antoine mentioned me, to my recollection, he didn't. But
And you talk
it
about
was
Antoine, who used to play on the Letterman show, correct?
no, Antoine Roney, Wallace's brother,
Oh,
saxophone.
Antoine Rooney. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
I thought you knew Antoine. Yeah.
okay.
But yeah, Antoine, his brother who's a saxophone player. That's the person who hooked Lenny and I up together. But it, we did that video, and then after he and the bass player, the guitar player, and his manager and assistant, they walked me outside, and Lenny said, "So you want to join my band?" And I said, "Yeah. When does it start?" And he started laughing. He said, "It started 2 weeks ago."
So you never went home.
Not really. I mean, I went home. We actually rehearsed in New Jersey,
Okay.
and I was living in New York at the time. So I
So
kind of did go home, and then we just
Wait,
rehearsed.
Ahmir, I gotta ask both of y'all a question because I know this is, I don't want this to sound reductive, but this commonality between y'all cannot just be overlooked.
okay.
Outside of the drum thing,
Uh-huh.
y'all have been the most consistent Afro wearers of our time. Can we talk about this? Can we talk about why we've been so consistent, Cindy? Can we talk about how hard it is to maintain this in a sweaty drum environment where things are shrinking? Can
I
can
was
we
about to
talk
say
about,
She
you're
said where things are shrinking.
yeah, the Afro shrinks in this water,
I
people?
I
Yes.
I too wanted to know, like, did that gig also come complete with your, because it's not until working here at 30 Rock, in which pretty much every day is a day at a high-end salon.
Yes, because that hair did not always look like that's beautiful on that head right there, right now. I'm talking about
It,
you, Amir.
Oh, thank you.
It changes. It's waves in there. I
Juices and
see it.
berries, juices and berries.
Yeah, yeah, 30 Rock.
Yeah, I was
juices
about
and
to
berries.
say,
Yeah.
what
Juices
was
and
your
berries.
coif routine? What was your
Yeah.
coif routine?
And why stay
I
so
like
consistent?
I like the juices and berries. Um, it's funny because, and not many people know this, but um, when I did that video, Lenny wanted me to shave my head for that video. um, and there was probably a couple of reasons, but he wanted me to shave my head, and I was like, "Oh no, I can't do that," you know. And I called my mom. I'm saying, and we were at the video, and they were waiting on me to shave my head.
Oh my
Oh, they were
God,
still waiting.
that would have
They
changed
were waiting.
everything.
And the manager was like, "Hey, this video is expensive. You got to get this head shaved so we can move on." And I went, found a phone, and I called my mom. I said, "Mom, they want me to shave my head." And she said, "Cindy, if you shave your head, your grandmother will roll in her grave. You cannot shave your head." I'm like, "Okay." And I said, "I can't do it. I can't shave my head." Um, and to in Lenny's defense, um, you know how we go through, and this is really kind of a full disclosure that I've
Right.
actually never talked about. So Ahmir, you got to blame you for this. This me saying this. You're bringing something out of me. In other words.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, you know how we do with our hair. We put stuff in our hair. Chemical and stuff. And I put some chemical in my hair, and it really messed my hair up.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's why he probably wanted me to shave it. I don't know, but he liked that look, and he showed me there was one woman in the video, a sister who had kind of my complexion, and she had a shaved head.
Yeah, I
And
Right.
he's like,
remember.
"Look at her, see how beautiful she is. You'll be beautiful like that." And I'm like, "Yeah, it looks good on her, but it's not gonna look
You don't know
good."
what my head looked like under there? Like,
Yeah, yeah. So for that video, I actually wore like a little Afro wig,
wow.
because yeah. And then we started with
Oh,
just my hair, as it became more of
iconic.
the Afro that I liked. It was just my Afro. I would just let my hair out and just be that. But I was always into an Afro, like from when I was young. I always had my Afro out, just because I liked that style. And one of my heroes, who was my older sister, she was like the first person in Yellow Springs who got an afro. She was like an innovator with
A
that.
pioneer. Okay.
Oh, she was. She was. I remember the day that she let her hair just, be free, and she came home walking down the street, and all I saw was this hair going like this.
Thompson.
Mushroom head.
And I was like, whoa, she's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Look at that hair.
Wow.
I thought it
Hey,
was awesome.
another
You
musician.
didn't answer on your side, Ahmir, but that's fine. It was for both of you.
Oh, um, it's weird. So, when I did the Motown Philly video, when Boys Men
Mhm.
asked me to be in a Motown Philly video,
Mhm.
um, my hair was out, but it was like it wasn't short like a box or whatever. Like I couldn't stop this from growing. It always grew. So night before, I was like, I'm gonna braid my hair, and believe it or not, that was super radical. That was like walking down 52nd Street in West Philly. People are like, them snakes in your head. Like
Oh yeah, he
now
had
it's
plaits because you had plaits, not cornrows. You had
yeah, I
plaits.
had plaits, right?
Yeah.
And people like it was like I was Medusa, like
Yeah. That's what they used to call us, Milli Vanilli. I see. Yeah, yeah.
right. But for 1991, that was such a radical,
It was.
rebellious hairstyle.
Mhm.
So I did, it was weird. The day that we had to shoot the album cover for Do You Want More, I wanted to pick my afro out, but the girl that does my hair wasn't home at the time because she was a student at Temple University, and we shot in the morning. Like that album cover for Do You Want More, I think was shot like maybe like 1 in the afternoon or whatever. We just made the photo dark. Um, but it wasn't until she got out of school at PM that she ran to Sigma to take my afro out. So the back of Do You Want More, when we're in the alleyway, I had my afro out, but the front cover, I had my my plaits in. So nah, I figured it was a new beginning. I thought I was pioneering something, and then 2 weeks later, Snoop wore his afro out at the American Music Awards,
Oh
and
yeah.
I was like, damn it.
That's why I
Ah,
said most consistent. Y'all are the most consistent. I appreciate y'all.
I'm just hard headed. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
but I like
appreciate
it.
that.
I like it. I like it. I like the afro, and I liked the afro pick. I was like, okay,
Yes,
yeah, you go, brother. I
thank
like,
you.
yeah.
One musician that is fond of sort of elevating um women who play instruments. Of course, not with us, brother Nelson Prince. Has he ever asked you to play for
Hmm.
him ever?
Hmm.
I never played with Prince. No, well, I mean, the only time I played with him was when he sat in with Lenny.
He must have been scared. What'd you think it was, Amir? What'd you think it was?
Wow, that's crazy because I
And
know for him, like his wheelhouse is elevating women who play instruments. And so,
yeah, we almost did, but it didn't happen. It was right around, you know, it was actually we were supposed to play together um in an audition setting, me auditioning for him, but
uh-huh.
it was the day that Michael Jackson passed.
Oh,
And that just
wow.
crashed the whole groove. That just crashed the whole vibe. And then it never happened after that. But it was that day. And I just never forget the look on his face because
You
it
were
was,
there with him when he found out?
mhm.
Oh shit.
How did that affect him?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
it was, the energy was not good. It was like
Oh my God, it was like it's
shock. It was like complete sadness. It was like, probably I would imagine, and he didn't say it, but I would imagine it was probably like him looking at himself because you
His
look at
future
your
or
own
his
your own
right,
your own mortality,
how did it
right.
happen? That's
and then
crazy.
when he passed, it was like all I could think of was like, wow, I wonder what was really going through his head that day that Michael Jackson passed. I mean, that was a shocker.
Yeah. They have been
Um,
battling for so long. I bet it, yeah, like just in a friendly French, like,
but I
And
mean,
not so friendly.
inspired contemporaries because, you know, both were just so incredible and innovative in their own ways. Um, I mean, there's no way that anybody could ever listen to anything Michael Jackson and not say that he was not only a genius, but that he was incredible. You know, from the dancing to,
Hmm.
you know, the obviously that incredible voice, you know, and when you listen to him as a child, it's like Smokey Robinson said it. He said, you know, man, are you a child or I don't think so. I think you're a midget.
Right, midget. Right,
Mm.
right, exactly. Did you have you? I know he was a massive fan of Lenny's. Like, has he ever seen you guys in concert, or like, did you ever get to meet him?
Michael or
Michael,
Prince.
Michael.
I never got to meet him, unfortunately, and I
Oh,
don't
okay.
think he's ever been to. He never went to a concert because we would have known if he was there.
hell
That
yeah.
would have been like a big
Oh,
thing.
okay.
So yeah, he never. Prince, yes, he sat in with us a couple times, few times actually,
Okay.
at some gigs, and then at a rehearsal. We were rehearsing for the Rock and Roll is Dead album
Okay.
tour, and Lenny and Prince were hanging out, and Prince came. It was actually with his perfume. That was the number that his valet came in into the studio before he did, and he was spraying
And
the
spray
perfume. And we're like, what?
the patchouli smell.
That's wild. I didn't know that.
It was so funny. He was spraying this before Prince came in. You know, I guess he was preparing the room. And
I
then Prince came in and he sat in on organ. He played with us. It was really cool. He brought his guitar. He had all of his gear, but he decided to play organ instead. Um, so that was pretty cool too.
What you
I
looking for?
I have to say that it's somewhere back there.
What?
Um, the I still occasionally I'll wear it, but yeah, I saw Prince's. You can tell. This is a weird thing to admit. You can tell a person's oil routine based on their bathroom. And weird again that I'm talking to you. You know, a big part of my vanilla smell is having gone in Lenny's bathroom once in Miami and saw Zoe's vanilla oil collection, and now we're the same thing. But
Multiple
also
vanillas, really?
all the oils that Prince wears, uh, that's
That's a
them.
lie. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Those are the oils that he wears?
Yeah,
Bergamot?
I know the combination of oils. So,
You
you
got some
know,
bergamot back there? What you got? Some bergamot, some patchouli? What you got?
just the best of Harlem. You know, some patchouli,
Hilarious.
some
Best of
Some
lavender.
Blue Nile.
No, not Money in the Street and Blue Nile. No, that's a little too
Uh,
52nd Street. But
Can I ask real
um,
quick? Was there ever a situation where there was a jam session with you and Sheila on the stage at the same time?
With me?
Yeah.
Um, well, not really. I was playing with Lenny at one point in we were playing at the House of Blues in LA, and she sat in, but that was on drums, so we weren't playing together.
That's what I meant. I thought
Um, so we
percussion.
and Lenny invited her to sit in, and I was cool with it, so she sat in on something. Um, Recently, last year, playing at again the House of Blues, but here in Las Vegas.
mhm.
Um, she was in the audience, and I think Carl Perazzo brought her up, and she was at the percussion, his station, playing, some percussion, and I
Okay.
think that's the closest it's ever been.
Who's the most challenging musician that you've played with? Because I know that going into different situations, you don't know if this is more laid back, like there's more groove, there's more aggressive sounding, this is soft sounding. Like for you, who's like probably the most challenging project that you've played with?
Most challenging. That's
you-
interesting.
Please say
Um,
Questlove from the Roots. That would be really funny. No, don't say that.
um, Don Pullen was challenging for me because
Okay.
he it was also a great learning experience. I played with him for 3 years and before he passed, and it
Hmm.
was incredible because he was so strong on the piano. So it gave me a chance to use volume and intensity, but it still had to be under the acoustic piano. He wasn't
Mm.
playing the electric instruments, so you had to be able to figure out how to be intense at every dynamic level. So that was a pretty amazing experience for me. That was
Okay.
just one.
For you, like this journey that you've had in music and creativity, like what is there left that you want to achieve as far as your life's work is concerned?
More explorations with my composition. Um, I'm in the process of recording a record now, and we're adding strings to it,
Hmm.
which the strings are done by someone else eventually. I would like to do the strings. I mean, we're getting into that kind of area where, I mean, I'm getting into that kind of area where I want to expand on not only what I'm playing, but compositionally, and then what I'm adding to those compositions, like with strings or different things for the arrangements.
Hmm.
Um, that's somewhere that I want to go, and you know, I want to keep pushing the envelope of raising my level. I mean, and not to compete with anybody, but just for me, to keep
Your
getting
personal
better
level.
and better. Yeah, just keep pushing myself because um I have to. It's kind of just inbred in me to want to better myself at every turn. So little things that I see, oh, Cindy, you really need to up your game in that. You really need to upgrade this. How about pushing the level of this or making that better? Oh, I heard that, and that's okay, but it could be so much better. So I'm really kind of hard on myself.
Well, even even when you're not trying, you're pushing people, And I will say, I was going to say that story for the end, but I told her already. But no, I thank you for uh even a role that you didn't know you played in my life and in my health.
Hmm. I like
Wow.
that.
Well,
Savior.
you know what? I love you so much that I am overwhelmingly honored to hear any of that because
Oh,
I I really think you're amazing. Your groove and your whole focus when you play is awesome. The
well,
different projects that you get into, doing the films that you're doing, the books. It's just you're just really like very inspiringly well rounded in the stuff that you're doing. So it's
well,
wonderful because
thank you.
we need influences that are positive, not just for right now, and right now is always important, but for the generations coming up. They need people to look up to and to look at and kind of be able to trace steps of who have done things that push the envelope in many ways, and you're one of those people. So I really appreciate it, what
Wow,
you're doing.
thank you. And
Yeah,
yes,
man.
like yeah, I took that compliment. She knows.
I know it's painful.
No, I love compliments. Anyway,
Flowers.
I love compliments.
no, I
That's
used to
nice and
hate
honest. I like
compliments.
that. He said,
I
I love
used to hate.
Flowers.
He's
I used to hate
manifesting that.
compliments,
He's
but
He is.
manifesting that.
I'm taking it
All of it.
in. I didn't cringe. Thank you, Cindy Blackman Santana, for joining us today. Questlove Supreme. Unpaid Bill. Thank you. Laya, thank you. I'm Questlove. Shout out to the crew, Jake and Britt, Sugar Steve. You missed a good one. And we'll see you next go round, y'all. Thank you.